Hey, good morning. Welcome to Thinking is Contagious. Have you had enough yet? Those guys, those people that voted for Biden, those of you that were duped into voting for Biden, have you had enough yet? Have you seen the the negotiations, quote unquote, that are taking place for his various stimulus packages? Have you seen what's being carved out of those? Because Biden is realizing that he's getting resistance from the Democrats as to the absurdity of this, especially the 3.5 trillion, which is quickly dwindling down to 2.5 and will end up probably somewhere around a trillion point two or five at the maximum. He's quickly realizing that he people see right through this and know what it is, which is a giant vote buying scheme trying to line up for the midterm elections. Um, and people with a little bit of common sense on both sides of the aisle are realizing we cannot mortgage the future of this country even further and to this extent for the reasons being proposed. So, what does Biden do? And this is where I want you to understand, and I'm aiming this mostly at those people that voted for Biden because of all the frees, the free education, the free child care, the free health care, the free everything. What is Biden now? What are the ideas being floated out there right now as to where to make cuts so he can get support from all the Democrat constituents on his bill? What is he cutting? Well, he started with free paying off student debt. That's been cut out. At one point, it was okay, we're going to pay off all the student debt when he was campaigning. Then it was after he won the election, we're going to pay off a portion of the student debt. And then we're going to pay $10,000 of student debt. And now they're not going to pay anything. Okay? How do you, those who voted for him based on that, how do you feel? A little betrayed, maybe? Now look at what they're talking about as most recently. Well, let's cut the child tax credit to only 1 year. Let's cut some of the services, free services, um, out of the bill. How come he's not cutting? How come he's not cutting some of the payouts to industry? How come he's not cutting some of the payouts to the electric vehicle sector? How come he's not cutting some of the payouts to some of the special programs and pork barrel items? Because those are the ones that have the payback for the politician. Those are the ones that go to the industries, cyber security, EVs, uh, quantum computing. Not that these things are not vital. I'm invested in all these things. They're all vital, but that should be allowed to the market. Those should be allowed to flourish and win and succeed and move forward based on who brings the better product mousetrap to the market, not based on government subsidies, i.e., Solyndra. Look that up when you see what Obama did with that. Those are the things. How come those don't get cut out? You know why? Because the politicians, Biden and the politicians, know that that's where they get paid. That's where their bread is buttered. And they can't cut those out. So who do they cut out? The very people they say that they represent. That's who is being cut out. The people who they said they were going to defend and they were going to deliver for, cut out. Why? Because they know that in 6 months, a year, or 2 years, when they need to knock on your door again to get your vote again, all they need to do is throw you a bone and a whole bunch of lies, and that you'll believe it hook, line, and sinker. And that's what to me is so incredible about how minorities in this country continue to vote Democratic. How naive, how ignorant, how lack and devoid of common sense can you be? The very infrastructure that you are complaining that keeps you oppressed is what you vote for to perpetuate. The very crutch that they offer you is what they use to hit you over the head and keep you weak and dependent. I've been through this many times. You look at every influx of refugees, of groups that have come into this country without the crutch, without the excuse. They get here with the premise of they burn the ships. There's no way back. They don't want to go back. They come here for progress. They come here to make a life. They come here to improve their lot in life. They come here because they understand oppression. They're fleeing it. They understand lack of opportunity. That's what they're fleeing. They understand racism. That's what they're fleeing. They understand precisely what is oppression and what is the inability to move ahead based on the virtues that you have, the strengths, the abilities that you have. They understand what it is to flee that lack of opportunity and come to a country where that opportunity exists. And they have all succeeded as groups. They have all integrated and succeeded and become successful, started businesses, entrepreneurs. What happens to the people here that continue voting Democrat, that have been here their whole lives, grew up in the system, and are under the belief, hook, line, and sinker, that they're being fed, the lie that they're being fed, that they can't get ahead because of their gender, because of their race, because of their political affiliation, because of their religious belief. You can't get ahead. It's stacked against you. What does that do? That does two things. Keeps that group believing that they can't, so they won't, and keeps that group believing that they need help from these Democrats and these politicians. And those politicians have proven to you, based on how we started this particular airing, that when push comes to shove, they'll cut your benefit, but they're not going to cut their own. And that's why the minorities and the groups in this country that claim that they're underprivileged and that they're abused and that they're not privy to the same opportunities, that's why they are exactly making those claims, because they continue buying into the lie that the Democrats have fed them. That is what the problem is. This morning, perfect example, I'm watching CNBC and Andrew Ross Sorkin, he's a New York Times writer. He's on CNBC. He's on the financial show in the morning, Squawk on the Street or whatever it is. This guy is so woke. He is so anti anything conservative. He's so anti, especially Trump. He dislikes him, and he has a hatred for Trump. But it's never been more apparent than this morning. I don't know if you heard, but the company with the ticker symbol DWAC went public a few days ago, and it had a meteoric rise starting yesterday. It basically went from a $10 stock to a $60 stock, and it's a SPAC. And this SPAC is taking Donald Trump's publicity company, social media company, public. This morning, Sorkin goes on and starts shooting holes into the equation about valuations, about it's not even a business, how it started in China, the SPAC underwriters have a Chinese origin, just disparaging, attacking. Every day SPACs come out. Every day, I didn't see him do this about Bill Ackman's SPAC. I don't see him do this about anybody else's SPACs, but he goes after the Trump SPACs. And he's saying it's not even a business. And who knows if it's going to work. Well, Andrew Ross Sorkin, I'll tell you why it's going to work for sure. I wish I had invested in it and I didn't. I'll tell you why it's going to work for sure. Precisely because 70 million Americans are fed up with the type of reporting that you did this morning that was not reporting. It was an op-ed. It was voicing your hatred of Donald Trump, your disdain for Donald Trump, your envy of Donald Trump, airing it and making yourself extremely unprofessional. We're not here to hear your opinion. We're not here to hear your views. You're supposed to be reporting. You're not reporting. You're spewing venom. And that's how the left is. That is how the left is. Exactly that report this morning about DWAC, the Trump SPAC, and Andrew Ross Sorkin, a perfect example of why it will work, because there's 70 million Americans who have said, we have had enough and we want to hear the other side. Any company that can start off from square one with 70 million supporters, or the ability to reach 70 million supporters with a target of 70 million, has got a huge advantage. And shame on me for not seeing that and having invested in it from the beginning. Now, the final point that I want to touch on is the continued, nonstop proliferation of advertising on television today, and the incredible, disproportionate representation of certain demographic groups in said advertising. You want fair representation, you want equality, you want to be represented fairly in this country, and then you turn around and you watch what's happening on television commercials and what's happening on television shows and what's being promoted today on television as far as what this country, how the makeup of this country is, and you will see that it's anything but fair representation. It is anything but. It is a concerted effort by the woke left to appease and to show an audience how woke they are, how open-minded they are, how fair and equal they are, by going to the other extreme, by going to a far extreme. And it's all based on one thing. It's not based, again, going back to what we talked about politics, it's not based upon their concern for these groups. No, not at all. They could care less. What it's based upon is making sure that they get as much of that free money that these groups have, continue buying their products, increase the purchase of their products. That's what this is about, getting to your bank account. They could care less about any of the other social equality, social correct guidance issues. Those are irrelevant to them. The only thing that's relevant is getting to the money that you have in your account that the government sent out. That's all this is about. There was a guy on yesterday on CNBC, one of the, a business, a guy who has investments. He's on many boards. I forget his name, who it was. And they were talking to him about the economy, and there was a Freudian slip by him in that his entire pitch was buy from, and he's rattled off some of his companies and the various products that they sell, and he had Wendy's. He was one of his companies that he's on the board of, or he's a major shareholder of Wendy's, and he brought the hosts lunch, Wendy's lunch, and he said, buy the fries, they're fantastic. And then he was talking about buying some other product from one of his other companies. I don't know if it was shoes or whatever. Buy for Christmas, buy the presents. That's all that this was based on. That's all that this is. And that was in a microcosm. And that Freudian slip shows you exactly what this is about. Getting on and promoting and having commercials with the only intent being grabbing a hold of those dollars that were sent out for free, because the government couldn't say they were going to give it to corporate America. But you know that that's where it ends up. What we've repeated so many times, if you divided all the money up in the world equally among every inhabitant, what would happen 10 years down the road, 5 years, whatever it is, and who knows who made the quote, but it's true. That money would all end up back in the hands of people who know how to make money. And it would end up in the hands of people who know how to preserve capital. And that's what's happening here. Those people that know how to make money and preserve capital, those people who run the means of production of the world, are saying, hey, the government just gave out trillions. Let's go get them. And it's easy pickings. It's slim pickings. It's like shooting fish in a barrel, because they know that the people who they have to take that money from, it's very simple. Money is not something that they're familiar with and they know how to handle, so it's easy to take it from them. And that's what's happening here. And that's what people like Andrew Ross Sorkin push, and that's what people like Joe Biden push. That's what people like Elizabeth Warren push, Bernie Sanders push. That's who they push. And the Republicans are not out of this woods. They're just as bad on the right side, but on the right side, not the correct side, on the right side of the equation. But you know what? Unfortunately, we've discussed this before. That's the nature of politics. It is not public service anymore. It's self-service. And the sooner we realize that these politicians could care less about us, that's why you need to have term limits, because it stops being a career. You need to say, forget about if you're elected once, even if there's term limits, you're elected once, that you get insurance and you get benefits for life and you get retirement. You don't get anything. You don't get anything for public service. It should be public service. You get paid a salary, and even that I got to think about. I really don't think you should get paid a salary for public service and term limits. Okay, I really don't. I think you should donate your time, your expertise, your experience, and what you have to offer to society. And that will eliminate these kids coming out of college, 25 years old with law degrees, and all of a sudden going to Washington, D.C., being elected and telling us how to live, how to spend our money, what we need to buy, what we don't need to buy, what we can do or not do as far as abortion and religion and prayer. No. Politics needs to be reformed. One term, no benefits, no perks, no lifetime perks. The same way that the Fed just enacted that you can't conduct business if you're a Fed member owning stocks or securities or bonds. Same thing should apply with Congress. Same thing should apply with Senate. Same thing should apply with any politically elected individual. Clean this shit up. Clean the swamp up. And if you look at it for what Trump was trying to do, even he's guilty, because he was involved. He's still a businessman, but a rising tide lifts all boats. And what he was doing in an attempt to become the greatest president that ever lived, to be designated as such by results, by economic results of this country, which is bottom line, what everything is based on, what he did was closer to fairness for America as a population of one, as Americans, population of only Americans, was the closest thing to a fair undertaking as we have seen since the inception of this country. And to have a guy like Sorkin come on there and go after it, guess what, Sorkin? The reason that that stock went up 600% in 2 days is because of people like you. Thank you for helping us prosper with your bias and your unprofessionalism. All right, I've said enough. Got to take the grandkids to school this morning, so hope you enjoyed this, and more to come. Thank you for your time.